Hello and welcome to Meeting in the Sacred, a podcast where each week we invite you into diverse conversations about physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being in the pursuit of wholeness. My name is Theresa Noach, and I am an interspiritual enthusiast and published author with an eclectic Christian background.
And I am Danielle Chandler, a Christ Path mystic and wholeness coach. No matter where you are in life, if you are curiously seeking, deconstructing, reconstructing, struggling in your faith, or just feeling lost, you are welcome here.
This is episode 9. This is episode 9. And we're calling it How to Live an Empowered Life. And Danielle and I were just having some really awesome conversation about this. And, what does it mean to live an empowered life? What does it mean to experience abundance and wealth? Like, we're going to talk about that right now. This is kind of new for us, the streaming on Facebook from a different platform. So I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to be able to see your comments. Danielle, do you have the ability to pull Facebook up on a separate screen?
Here, let me see.
And then possibly be able to keep an eye on any comments or anything like that comes in?
Sure.
Cool. And then every once in a while you can pop in over there and see if we have anybody that has a question or a comment or anything like that. So good morning. Happy Thursday to you, wherever you are in the world. We would absolutely love it if you would engage with us in this episode. And if you would definitely show us some love, hit the hearts, all that good stuff. Share the video, y'all. It's not hard. Just hit it. A little bit of love. Just hit the share, and then there might be something valuable that you have contributed to the world today by sharing this podcast. So Danielle and I have a YouTube channel called Meeting in the Sacred, and it is a new channel as we started creating our podcast back in April. So we've been filming in advance. So the 4 episodes that we currently have aired were pre-recorded, and everything that is uploaded on YouTube will also be pre-recorded. So you get the opportunity, and we get the opportunity to be with you live today, which we will do this every so often as we feel led. And so here we are, what it means to live an empowered life. I mean, just a breath. Mm-hmm. I just want to invite the spirit of peace, clarity, healing, encouragement, wisdom, insight to move in open hearts and open minds. Anybody that is in alignment with the frequency of empowerment, may they catch this video. May they be drawn to it. We ask, if you're coming on now to watch, do the best you can to stick around. If not, come back later. Let us know if you're watching the replay. We'd love to know where you're watching from. And we just speak all those beautiful blessings over you, you magical beings, you. So where I'm going to start with how to live an empowered life is by talking about what the opposite of empowerment is. Many people are experiencing powerlessness in their lives. And if they don't resonate with that word right now, which I know many people do, helplessness, powerlessness in some way, shape, or form. Powerlessness is the opposite of empowered. And many people have had experiences in their life, specifically if you've had childhood experiences where you were vulnerable and powerless, these events stick with you in your life, and they play a story behind the scenes that causes a cycle that feels like self-sabotage. If anyone is in a pattern in life where they feel like every time they start to take two steps ahead, something happens and the rug is just ripped out from underneath them, and they worry, they say things like, why does this always happen to me? Why can't I get ahead? Why does it feel like God is against me? Why does it feel like everything is against me? Every time I get money, something breaks down. Every time I have a good relationship, every time I start feeling good, something happens in my health. Every time, why? Why do I feel this way? And sometimes when this cycle has been happening for so long, usually because something has stemmed from a childhood deep feeling of helplessness, powerlessness, being abandoned, being neglected, those records get buried really deep. And though we may not be walking around saying, I am powerless and I am helpless, there is a part of us that is stuck in that record. And to begin living an empowered life requires a shift of energy. And in order to shift that energy, we have to shift our thoughts. And that's not as easy as it sounds. You know, we are certainly multidimensional beings, spirit, soul, and physical. And because we are divine beings created in the image of a divine, loving creator, we're not wired to be able to be okay with powerlessness, right? Being created in the image of the most powerful, almighty, infinite means that it is unnatural to feel powerless. So there's a part of us in our soul that is going to experience suffering on such a deep level until we become empowered to shift the meaning that we're assigning to our experiences. And these are all emotional frequencies of our fallen human condition, as I would call it. And going back to the Bible, in the Hebrew text, in the Hebrew scriptures, in the book of Genesis, said to have been written by Moses, the story of the Garden of Eden poetically describes our descent from light to darkness, from full consciousness, full union, full clarity, full oneness with the creator, to only using approximately what we know now of as 5% of our brain's capacity. And I'm not necessarily saying that full capacity of the brain equals total consciousness. We don't know. We don't know that yet. But I do believe that it's likely that the two are connected, that our descent into this darkness, this unconscious state of being, this survival state of being, is connected to our sleepy brains, you know, not using that 95%. And Danielle, I believe that when Jesus said, I came to restore that which was lost, is a statement of infinite power. And I know you are a Christ path mystic, and you can touch on that a little bit and how maybe that translates also for you as to what does it mean when Jesus said, I came to restore that which was lost. You know, I see it as an infinite statement. What is there to restore? And when we're talking about living an empowered life, we want to restore our sense of power, divine power, not egotistical power that's overcompensating for something that we are missing, or that pursuit of filling a void, but it's the completion. So Jesus said, I came to restore that which was lost. And it's obvious that we lost our ability to perceive ourselves as whole or as powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love how you really communicated all that you just shared, by the way. I
Thanks.
think um there's, our being is complex, simple, and multifaceted.
So true.
And where I think, began in my journey of inviting this type of divine revelation to enter into these distorted spaces. I like to say distorted rather than broken, because I think, you know, as I look at music, as I look at guitars, they have distortion pedals, and there is an authentic, original sound that a guitar puts out. But you can have these distortion pedals that like change the sound, alter it, but there's always this true sound. There's always this true origin. And so I see that in our own humanity and our own thoughts and our own vibrations, if you will,
That's
that
good.
we do have this divine nature. Like you were saying, we were made in the image and likeness of the spirit of love. And so if that is our truest form of self, then we can go back to that. We can tune back to that. And for myself, it really started this journey for me with understanding that our thoughts really do impact our choices, and they also create habits. And so when we understand why we're thinking what we're thinking, because like you were sharing a little bit ago, like this feeling of powerlessness, oftentimes when I've worked with people and as I've looked at my own journey, I've heard people, when I've asked questions or asked myself questions, especially in the beginning of my journey, their answer has been, I don't know. And as I've moved through my own personal journey and worked with different professionals, gone to counseling, I have really realized that we are experts of ourselves, that our spirit knows the answer. Our body often holds the answer. Our union with God holds the answer. And I think that there are different blockages that we can experience that would try to communicate that we don't know the answer. And I think even in that moment of saying, I don't know the answer, is a part of our process. And so I don't see that it's necessarily wrong to say, I don't know.
Right.
But I think
Right.
the hope is, and the empowerment element of that type of conversation or experience is that you can know the answer. It might take a little bit of time, and that's okay. And that is hopefully going to inspire the person to know that their divine nature hasn't given up on them. And that they might feel stuck, but there is this opportunity of growth. And that is what I have found for myself in the on the Christ path, is that even when I might not necessarily have faith in myself, the path itself has faith in me.
That's
And
good.
yeah, that, has been I think a hopeful resource that even though I don't understand, somewhere in that has provided this essence of being held, that I am seen, and that I'm not alone. So I found that to be really empowering.
I think that, like what you said about even when you don't feel like you have the answers, you've developed the ability to trust that the path has answers. And then you even said, that our higher self and even your body. I love that you said our body,
Mhm.
because one of the things that we hold space for in our um, community meeting in the sacred. And for any of you that's watching, we would love for you to connect with us on our website, meetinginthesacred.com, to continue to stay connected with us. Because our heart is to really develop a community of people that have chosen a path, or are looking for a path, or are experiencing a wilderness, you can't find one, and you have questions about things that you've believed about God, yourself, and the world. And it can be a scary place. It can be a lonely place. It can be, and is often, once we get to the point of surrender, a thrilling place. And it's super thrilling when we find people like ourselves, not necessarily that believe like us, but we can find common ground, and we can develop strength in numbers by offering the solace to one another, that even in the time of not knowing, um, I have found that I was ultimately supported. I was ultimately supported by the path, even if I didn't know it was there.
Mhm.
But there is this point where we come from complete desperation, where we come from um, a sense of hopelessness, helplessness, powerlessness. It's usually in the place where that vibration has ultimately brought us to the crossroads of the choice. And the choice is, which way am I going to go? Which path am I going to take? And that doesn't mean that I have to choose a religion. That doesn't mean I have to choose to, or profess that I believe in or understand any particular type of deity. It is that I am coming to, and I am at a crossroads in my life where what is happening in my life, I don't feel I can endure anymore. Where the patterns and cycles of my life, I've had it. I've had enough. And for some people, it's as dark as, I don't want to go on, but maybe this time will be different. And that's what we hope. We hope that we can meet people, meeting in the sacred. We hope we can meet people at the intersection, as well as many other intersections. But we definitely want to meet people at the intersection that is the most darkest, where it is just, you literally, for some people, and I'll have to say, I'm excited for you, because if that is you, and you have come to that point where you are so broken that you have to go all in on something different, if that's you, I am really excited for you. I'm
Mhm.
excited for you because you don't have to go it alone. Because obviously, if you're listening to our podcast, you don't have to go it alone. We are here for you. You can engage with us. You can utilize the resources that we've spent our lives, hours and time marinating and walking through and creating. And you don't have to go it alone. But the gift of that intersection is invaluable. And so there is something that has to happen, though, when you get there. There's something that has to happen. It's a choice. There is a choice that has to be made, because you aren't, what do they say? If you're not going forward, you're going backwards, right? But you're always moving. You're always moving. And so if you're not going up, you're going down, however you want to look at it. So when you get to that crossroad, you have to make a decision. You're either going to keep going down the same exact path that you've always known, and you're going to keep experiencing the same crap that you've been experiencing. And depending on where you're at in your life, you might still be a functioning powerless person.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say that, I'm saying that's how you feel, not because we both know, Danielle and I know, and a lot of our listeners know, nobody's powerless. But this is how you feel, and that's the reality of it. So you might be a functioning powerless person, and so you're functioning just enough that you can continue to keep avoiding making the choice. And there's reasons why we avoid making the choice, and a lot of times, like you just said a minute ago, we don't know the answer to that. We don't necessarily understand why I haven't been able to change this part of myself that seems to keep leading me down a destructive path. We don't know why it is, that I've got a bad history. And I'm not necessarily saying me, I'm just speaking in general, but some people might say, every relationship I've ever had is abusive. Every job I've ever had, I get promised all kinds of things and I never move up. I never advance. Everything I've ever tried to do, I've failed at, no matter how hard I tried. So you may not know why yet that pattern is stuck, but it's there. And where there's fruit, there's a root. And it's bad fruit. It doesn't taste good, and you don't like eating it, and it's making you sick. So what do? You uproot the plant. So now you're standing at a crossroad and you are realizing that I'm living on a diet of toxic fruit, and it's going to kill me one way, shape, or form. Somehow. It might be a slow, miserable death. It might be a fast death. It might be a soul death. It might be a physical death. It could be all the above. But what I'm consuming in my life, the fruit that I'm producing is killing me. So you're at a crossroad and you have to make a choice. And that is to acknowledge that you have nasty fruit and it's not nourishing your life. It's not working for you. And so where there's fruit, there's a root. Okay, so here's two things you can now acknowledge, two answers that you have that you may not have had before. One answer is my diet, the fruit that I'm feeding myself is not nutritional. Therefore, this fruit must be uprooted. This tree is not producing good fruit. And I love the Bible scripture. You'll hear me say it a lot. A good tree cannot produce bad fruit. A bad tree cannot produce good fruit. And this doesn't mean that every human being isn't going to experience hardship, because bad fruit is not the same as hardship. We're talking about perpetual life cycles that seem to be some kind of curse, that seem to be some people will say generational curses. Some people will say demonic oppression or possession. All of those things I'm not disclaiming. Every spiritual path sees those things and describes those things in different ways. So, but the bad fruit's there. So what are you going to do? You're going to uproot the tree. You're going to uproot the tree. How do you uproot the tree? How do you uproot the tree? And I think that somebody said to me a long time ago, I'll give a shout out actually to Tony Sama, just in case my Meggie is watching or hears this, or maybe I'll tag her in it later. But years ago, I was so overwhelmed. I was in my 20s, girl, and I didn't have half the responsibilities. I didn't have a third. I didn't have a quarter. I didn't have an eighth of the responsibilities I have now. And I was so overwhelmed. I had to be at work at 4 o'clock at the bar and sling drinks, take a couple classes at school, and pay a couple of bills. I was so overwhelmed. And I'm not trying to undermine anybody that's in that place, but But I'm telling you, it's a blessing to get to a place in life where you've built the muscle and the strength to look at where you were in life and go, wow, look how strong I've gotten. Look how resourceful I've gotten. Look how much I've learned. Look where I've grown. I am managing and leveraging now 1,000 times more than I used to. And I'm not living like an overwhelmed basket case, right? I have days, but it's not a all the time thing. So uprooting the tree. Tony said to me years ago, how do you eat a big bowl of spaghetti with the noodles off the side? He's totally Italian, I think. How do you eat a big bowl of spaghetti with the noodles off the side? And I'm waiting for some like deep, profound message. And I was like, what is it? And he says, one bite at a time. And I have used that with my kids, you know, when they're cleaning their room and it's just a mess and they can't seem to, where do I start? Where do I start? What do I do? How do I, it's too big of a mess. It's too big of a bowl. It's too big of a tree. It's too big of a knot to untangle. I just can't see my way out of this at all. It's one bite at a time, one step at a time on a different path.
Yeah, I think that makes things more manageable, you know, especially when I was working in addiction recovery. You know, a lot of people, they would come in not, I guess, understanding certain practical elements in life, how to carry out certain things, and they experience a lot of overwhelm and powerlessness doing certain tasks. So they would just kind of shut down and disconnect and walk away. And my job was to move in and to be curious, you know, because I was there to help support them so that they could be able to gain the tools as well as awareness to understand why they were, you know, moving through these thought patterns and what it was that was causing them to shut down so that they could pick up a new skill set that would be more empowering and to help them feel like, I guess, really their dignities was restored. You know, that they were capable of doing these, what some people might see as a small task, but for them, it was this really big thing, you know, and for their growth and development as their own individual person, they needed to be able to gain the skill set and the character for, you know, something even like washing dishes, like looking at a pile of dishes and just being like, nope, like I can't do that. That's way too much. And being like, okay, instead of doing all of these dishes, what if you just are responsible for your own dishes? You know, you're responsible for your own cup, your own bowl, your own fork, your own knife, your own spoon. You know, just see how that works out. And that was actually an exercise I did with somebody. And it was amazing to see how the accomplishment of that task helped them to feel powerful and to hone in on this excitement that they could accomplish this task, and it made them wonder what else they could do. And so then they started to integrate other things like pots and pans and you know, before you knew it they were cleaning all the dishes, and that mindset and mentality overflowed into other areas of their lives, even through relationships, you know, where at one point in time they may have felt so overwhelmed by confrontation, but even my ability to confront them in love, you know, and to be curious and to sit with them and what they associated as their darkness and to sit with them and to be like, hey, like, I see you. Like, I see your heart, I hear your pain, I see that this is really challenging, and not condemn them, and not force them into a deeper shame cycle because of some type of, I don't know, rules and regulations that needed to be upheld. But to just be like, hey, like, I'm human too. Like, I've got my challenges. Like, I understand. Like, I get overwhelmed. But that type of care, helped heal their heart, and helped that type of confrontation, of me coming to them. It helped them from my awareness, to know that confrontation doesn't have to be scary. And so even if they moved into connecting with a family member or another resident or staff, they may have been scared, but the more experiences that they would have like that, where people weren't yelling at them or punishing them, like, they may have felt as a child growing up and associated the end result of confrontation with that type of punishment, that was actually starting to be rewritten. The narrative was starting to diminish. And it was just really amazing to see how something like washing dishes, this person's challenge, this person's struggle, coming to them with a compassionate mindset to sit with them, really did encourage them and impact them on a multi-level. The practical, helping them implement something they thought that they couldn't do, a task, working through relationships, giving them a sense of dignity and restoring that, and helping them to know that these maybe negative tapes that they've played in their head, like some of the ones that you were sharing, like, oh, I'm not good enough, oh, I can't accomplish things, oh, I'm always going to be this way, like, things don't work out for me, and they just throw their hands up in there. Those things started to get rewritten. Like, well, maybe those things aren't really the truth of my reality. Maybe those things aren't really real about who I am. Look at what I have done and what I can do. Oh my gosh, what is possible for me? Like, if this is, something that I saw that was this scary, terrifying space, and now I'm in it and I'm living in it and I'm thriving in it. Like, what is actually possible? What are these other spaces in my life that I have seen scary and terrifying, and I don't want to even put my little toe in there, you know? But what if I did move into those spaces with this same type of feeling and experience? What could my life be like? And how could my life transform? How can I transform? How can I know and be aware of this greater capacity that is actually within me?
And you know what? that that does not apply only to somebody who is in a place in life where they're starting with a sink of dishes, but we can take this up to any level of achievement, if you want to call it, because the truth is everybody's floor is somebody else's ceiling, and that is not to make anyone better than another on an internal human level, but it's the truth. We are truly all, I mean, I'm 44 years old, young, 44 years young. And if we have a listener who is 25, 30, and they haven't purchased their first house yet, maybe they haven't had a child yet, maybe maybe it's just a matter of dealing with, they've had health crisis and trying to support themselves financially, or, maybe early on in teenage or younger years, they got involved in substances and then they ended up on the cycle. And at that point, you could be any age. And, because of the life experiences you have, you could be in your 40s and 50s, and a sink of dishes is the overwhelming factor of your life. But you could also be someone who has lived you know, the the healthier life. Maybe you've got a lot of achievements financially and intellectually. Maybe you've done a lot of great things. Maybe you feel pretty good about your life and your choices at this point, but you've kind of peaked out, right? You've come to a point where maybe just now some of those cycles are starting to catch up to you because you've plateaued. And I know a lot of people do experience that when they begin to make achievements and they begin to make some strides in their life in the direction that they want to go. They begin to feel like they're living an empowered life. And then bam, out of nowhere, like comes a cycle of what the heck is this, And then they are hit with being overwhelmed. They are hit with, and even sometimes just life situations, deaths, economy, family members could be suffering, kids could be suffering. And so you could end up going from feeling like you're on top of the world to being stuck in a cycle where things are overwhelming. And so it doesn't really matter what level of dysfunction you're experiencing or how you got to this crossroads or how successful you've been up to this point in any way, shape, or form. We can all find ourselves at a point in our lives where we're experiencing this crossroad of powerlessness, where we're experiencing these dysfunctional cycles, and we don't want to stay in them. And so, you brought up just some amazing points about, I would say, to the person who was experiencing what you consider to be a level of success and progress in your life, but now you're at a place where you feel defeated and you want to get back to that place. Number one, stop looking back. Okay. Number one, whatever success you had in the past, it really truly doesn't matter anymore. And what I'm saying by that is that not that the contributions you've made in the world, be it through raising your children, be it through a career that you had, be it through any work that you've done and contributed to the world, just being yourself and being a light, not that that's no longer valuable, is not what I'm saying, but the past is no longer in existence. Your contributions and what you have sown will continue to go forth and reap a harvest. The world will continue to feel what you have invested forever in some way, shape, or form. The energy that you put forth in this life, be it fruitful and healthy or toxic, is going to continue to reverberate for infinity. But there are crossroads, even energetically, where those vibrations meet another vibration and they begin to retune. And I love how you or create a new tune or create a new harmony. And that's where we can actually start seeing that, well, you know what? I can never take that vibration back. Once it's sent out, it's sent out. You can't take it back. But what you can do is you can merge that vibration with something harmonious, and you can actually create a completely new sound, right? Since we're talking music. So you can make a completely new sound by taking the energy of that which has been sown and using it now to paint a different picture. Use it for the shadows that help to bring the light of the tree on the painting to the forefront of your perception, right? You can't have a beautiful multidimensional piece of art without a shadow. And so don't be discouraged and think that, I've sown a lot of really bad stuff, or you might be someone who believes in karma and it's like, oh my God, I've got a lot of bad karma in my life. And that might be so. I mean, even if you're a Christian, the Bible says what you sow, you will reap. So if you've sown, you will reap. There's consequences to what we sow. In order to soften the blow of those consequences to the best of your ability, it's never too late to start sowing something beneficial to the world, to humanity, to yourself. That that is one way to reconcile some of the funky stuckness energy that you're experiencing. Sometimes is to take your eyes off of what you can't, like Danielle said, take it off of the fact that you don't feel like you can handle that whole sink of dishes, so to speak, and put it on what you know you can do. And so one of the most important facets of living an empowered life is recognizing what you can do right now to create a frequency of empowerment, to create an energy of empowerment. What can you do right now? And never underestimate the power of a simple thought. Thoughts create matter. And so often we look around at our situation and we think we don't have anything to work with.
Mhm.
It's not in me. I don't know how. I can't. I don't. A simple thought. And actually, I want to bring this up. So today, the new re-edited version of my book, Unraveled from Trauma to Transformation, is live. And I have a 6-week workbook in the back to help you cultivate an expansive vision for your life. I sat down with somebody one time, a friend, and because I've been in the practice of being a visionary and cultivating my gift as a visionary, simple vision boards actually were a good tool for me to really sharpen and cultivate my gift as a visionary. But you don't have to have the gift of visionary. I truly believe it is instilled in every human being. It's called your imagination. Every one of us has an imagination, and it is a powerful tool. Your imagination is actually how you make a tangible connection with the unseen realm. Your imagination is what you're experiencing when you're having visions, be it in a worship service at church or when you're in a meditative state. You are connecting with the part of your brain that is capable of imagining the untangible. And so I would say the imagination takes up a huge part of that 95% that we've untapped. You know, we don't even know how much even beyond that. But learning to cultivate your imagination is one of my learning to teach you how to cultivate your imagination is one of my specialties, and that's what I offer in the back of my book. And so you can actually get that today, and stay tuned because soon I'm going to be doing groups and things like that where I actually coach you and walk you through it. But the point of what I'm saying is that you might feel like you can't envision your life any other way right now. And I was sitting with somebody one day and I asked them, okay, so if money wasn't a thing and situations weren't a thing, and you literally could go anywhere you want in the world right now, where would it be? And like Danielle said, you might not have the answer, but your path does. The thing is, or your body does, right? It's there. It's there. So I sat with this person and I asked them that question, and their immediate answer, they were like, I don't know, right? And for me, I was really baffled because I have cultivated the imagination and I can go to some really spectacular places that don't even exist on this planet, and I can make them, you know? And so to ask somebody like, okay, like literally I'm handing you a blank check, man. Like I'm handing you a blank check and I'm saying right now, where do you want to go? I'm going to write you the check. And so one of the things that stops somebody from being able to see that is practicality. They might be in the practical mind and they're immediately going to default into what's practical, and they're immediately going to think about everybody else instead of themselves. They're going to immediately find a reason to take the focus off of the simple question, which is, what can you do if your situation was limitless? I'm not asking you what are your limits. I'm not asking you what are your reasons why you can't. I'm asking you, without any limits, with infinite money, where would you go? And then of course I had to like jog jog the memory, which I do when I work with clients. You know, if they're in that stuck place, I'll actually help them to be able to tap into it. And within a few minutes, this person was able to identify where they would go in the world. My next question would be, okay, well, what does your estate look like? Right? What does it look like? Oh, and then they have to deal with feelings of like, well, I don't want too much because then that's greedy. And I don't need that much. I don't need, but what people aren't realizing is that if you can imagine such an expansive, limitless state of being, then you also have the capacity to empower others to experience a limitless state of being and abundance and resourcefulness. And if we can do that together as humanity with the heart of Papa, Mama, God, if we can do that together, right, then there is enough to go around. But it's finding that starting point, and it's finding that I can see it. Yes, I can. Right. And so for a lot of people, they're stuck because they can't. They're stuck in the practical, but I still have to pay my bill by the end of today. And I don't have any money for that. Can you help me find the money for that? You know, working with women that are coming in off the streets and things like that. A lot of times you're not going to have this conversation about being able to vision your life because genuinely they're thinking about how they're going to get their lights turned on in their house, or if they're dealing with addiction, their body is doing nothing but telling them that they need to get that next fix. So there's different levels. And I don't think you and I right now are necessarily moving in the addiction space or the recovery space 100%. You, however,
but
right, that's not really our specialty right now, even though you've worked in that. But you, however, were talking a little bit ago about, you know, working with people on a practical level. So a shout out also really quick for Danielle, because you can find her on a personal level, hire her for coaching, for wholeness coaching. They can meet you on Instagram, or they can find Instagram on raw.
You are fully alive.
You
okay.
are.
You are blending my
You
jewelry.
have a lot. Yes. You can find her jewelry on Raw Elegance.
Yeah.
Raw Elegance. You can find her beautiful jewelry. And then, but you are fully alive on Instagram. And of course, at any time, guys, if you don't remember those, you can go to, what we do want you to remember is meetinginthesacred.com. You can find both of us there at any time, and we can help you get in alignment with the resources that you need to be able to start taking that first step on a new path, on a path of empowerment, on a path of yes, you can. We have different sets of gifts, but what we both do is we work with people individually and on a group basis, kind of like we do in this podcast, to help people find the value of their contribution. I don't care what your situation is, you have something to offer. You have something to offer, and you might feel like I need, but I'm telling you what, the minute you take the focus off of what you need and you put it on what you have, then you begin to multiply what you have instantly. Instantly. I promise you. Huh?
Can I speak into that?
Please.
I just, man, you shared such great stuff. But I feel like there was, you know, these beautiful explanations you were sharing about kind of the roles that you and I play to help come alongside of people, to help people find words to these layers, and to literally look at these layers. You know, when you were asking your client the question of where would you go in the world, what would your estate look like, or whatever, you know, and hearing these narratives or limiting beliefs, or these, you know, types of thought patterns that create these cutoff points for a person to actually move past and through, so that they can cultivate a life that resembles the core of who they are, instead of coming from a place of these possible hurts and pains of the past that would say, well, I can't. I think working with each individual on an individual basis is really special and profound, and not putting people into boxes, but letting them find their own language and their own words to connect to their own experiences. Because so often the reason why they can't find the words in that moment is they have felt in the past their words were taken away from them and somebody else had to speak for them. So they didn't actually have the opportunity to exercise their voice and to continue to maintain it. And I think for people like you and I who come alongside of others and help coach them into reconnecting to their voice and their inner self, like you were saying, it's elevating them to know what they have available to them. You used terminology, learning to understand the power of people's accumulation. I think that's so beautiful. It's not only restorative on so many levels, because again, it's elevating people's mindsets and perspectives to know, oh, yeah, I don't have to discredit this thing because, like, here's a limiting belief, insert here. You know,
Right.
like what does a growth mindset sound like? You know, like Theresa and I were talking earlier before we started recording, and we were talking about the power of perspective. And you know, so often I go into Walmart and I'm checking out, and the register asked me if I want to round up my sale and donate a certain amount of money to some kind of organization like the McDonald House, or, you know, Children's Cancer Society or whatever. And I was like, man, you know, even if it's 5 cents, 10 cents, 50 cents, all that adds up over time. And there's so many Walmarts in New Mexico, let alone, you know, thinking about the United States, and how all of that adds up and how impactful that actually really is, and how it is bringing change. You know, and it's my 10 cents. Where if I was asked directly, oh, you know, do you have any money to give, and I have 10 cents, the association that I have with that 10 cents looks different, you know, than if I look at it in the greater perspective of what we're doing collectively. It's just really, it's really, you know, shifting that perspective and mindset to know that what you do have really does matter, and how you choose to invest it can really change things and impact things.
Absolutely. Accumulated effort, you know, as well, accumulated thought processes, the accumulation. And we were also saying before we started this episode, you know, you can accumulate wealth, and you can accumulate stuff, and it's not the same thing. So I can say I want to have a real estate business, and I can accumulate through money or any other resources, somebody's money, if it's not mine, right? But someone had to buy the house. But I can accumulate. There are multiple ways to accumulate things. And that's something that people also need to understand when it comes to becoming more empowered financially, is that a lot of times people will look at their immediate 2 pennies or 10 cents and think, you know, I'm done for. But as soon as we can start looking around our lives and start seeing everything as a resource, and our thoughts and our words are, at least if you can still think in your right mind, and even if you can't use your mouth, but you can write or whatever it is, there is always something within your being that is a part of your God-given wealth. And you can accumulate baggage. That's what it was. You can accumulate baggage, or you can accumulate wealth. If you want to accumulate wealth, and I'm not referring to money, but I'm referring to abundance, abundance of joy, abundance of peace, abundance of the capacity to be infinitely generous. Who wouldn't like to live a life of infinite generosity? But let me tell you what, even if you have a big home or two or three or four, and you got a few houses that you're renting out, and you've got the kids and the car and the dog and you've got all the abundance and you got all the things, right? If you don't have the abundance mindset to manage those resources and the wealth mindset to manage those resources, and all you accumulate is baggage. And that baggage will rob you from the ability to live and experience joy. That baggage will rob you from the ability to live a generous life. That baggage will rob you. There are people that have more stuff that if you were to liquidate that stuff and put them in the size house that they actually probably need, they could do a whole bunch of really awesome stuff with that. And I'm not saying having a big house. I have a pretty big house. I have a lot of stuff. I have a lot of kids. I'm constantly purging. I am constantly looking for ways to either repurpose or to take what I have and donate it, or to liquidate it. You don't always have to donate what you have. Turn it into money and then do something with the money. You can maybe help your kids do a little startup lemonade stand and teach them about finances with that money. That is valuable. You're creating a human being that understands money, one less human being to contribute to the national debt. And again, that's a big story, the national debt, but this is an accumulation of a collective mindset. The national debt is an accumulation of a collective mindset. It is a mindset. It's a bunch of mindsets together to create, right? Each country has their own energy. Each country has their own identity. Whether you like being in your country or not, you are part of the collective mindset of that country. And if you like the amount of influence that the wealthiest people have in your country, well, then stay broke. But if you want to learn to have an influence in your country and bring balance with this life that you've been blessed to give, then start with your thoughts. Start with the words that you're speaking over your life. Start with what you have in your possession. Okay. If you are living with, and I do see comments, that is so cool. Thank you, Sissy. Love you. My sister's watching. If you have, if you're renting an apartment and you don't know how you're going to make your bills and your job doesn't pay enough, you start with what you have. Okay. Do you have time? Right? Do you have time? Well, what can you do with that time that's going to create the energy of abundance and resourcefulness? Well, there's a couple of things you could do, and we can do a whole nother episode on the practicality of like some of the ways to go about creating abundant energy, some of the ways to go about creating resourceful energy, the energy of empowerment. But if you have time, if you have as much as an hour a week, and picking up an extra hour at work isn't going to make your bills or break your bills, right? You're still going to be scrapping up pennies for your rent at the end of the month, but you have an hour. What can you do with that hour that's going to add value to someone else's life? What you're doing is you are taking one of those dishes out of the sink and you are washing them. You are actually clearing out some of the stuckness. You're clearing out some of this stuck energy that is in your body by taking the focus off of what you don't have and putting it on what you do have. And you're actually turning that 1 hour of yours that would otherwise be wasted on scrolling into adding value to someone else's life. Can you go volunteer down the street at a pantry and help to put food on the shelves? Like there's plenty of places where you can go just literally help merchandise the back kitchen of a pantry. Can you go, volunteer to do a little bit of cleaning? Can you volunteer for a lot of churches, whether you want to go or not? And I don't necessarily endorse going to church, to be honest. I don't speak against all churches, but a lot of churches and communities and nonprofits are out there doing things like creating meals for people that are unable to, maybe they've had surgery, maybe it's a mommy that's just had a baby. You don't have to be a member of the organization to call up and say, hey, I have an hour next week, can I make a meal for somebody, right? And you might be thinking, well, I don't have food. I promise you there is a pantry somewhere in your neighborhood that will provide you with a box that you can turn that box into meals for somebody else. If you want to shift the energy around being broke, you got to give to someone. Period. Point blank. I lived it. And I'm here to tell you, it is one of the fastest ways to get out of poverty and to get out of the stuck mindset of being broke. And then what happens is you're being a good steward with what you have. You're no longer like, sulking with what you don't have, but you're actually looking at what do I have and how can I sow it? And when you do that, then you're actually creating an energy of opportunity. And what happens is you suddenly start getting a return on that investment.
Mhm.
And that 1 hour of your time starts turning into 10 hours of value that somewhere somehow opens up. Whether you're a waitress and somebody tips you, 10% more than what you would have made in that, or 100 times more than what you would have made in that hour. Whether you get a call from a side job. These things happened to me when I was doing this. I got a call from a side job to go paint a few rooms for $1,000 on a weekend, which paid the rent that I was behind that month. I mean, these opportunities just started to open. And so to live an empowered life, you take inventory of what you have. You don't look at what you don't have first. You take inventory of what you have. And in my program, we create a vision of what would your life look like if you could do anything with it. But then we do take like that real solid look at, well, what does your life look like now? So let's look at the garden of your life. Let's call it a garden. Let's look at that. What does it look like? Okay, great. I can see a little rose bush in there. It's trying to come out, but it's totally being choked out. By what? Then we're actually going to go through looking at what is that thing that's choking that rose bush out. You use rose plant out. You use the phrase earlier that I loved, Danielle, thought patterns that create cutoff points, right? To me, those weeds are the thought patterns creating cutoff points. So then Danielle does this also in her coaching. We're going to go in with you and help you find those thought patterns that are choking out your potential, the areas of your life that you want to grow and cultivate. So I want to leave you today with that. You are never powerless. Never. You're never powerless. And I'm speaking to us in the first world. And I'm not obviously referring to some of the smaller percentages of society where there is a physical actual powerlessness. But even in that case, if we had the ability to speak into somebody's heart and soul, we could tell them that they still have power that cannot be taken away from them. And that is their mind and how they choose to think about their situation. That can't be taken away from you. You are never powerless. You always have the ability to choose what you're going to think, and you always have the ability to choose the meaning that you're going to assign to your life, to who you are, to your situation. And I would love any last thoughts that you might have on that, Danielle, before we close.
I was going to share a story to come along your stories.
Awesome. Give it to us, girl.
Well, first I want to say I love Gandhi's quote, "Be the change that you want to see in the world." And my story is that I was outside my house one day and I saw this man picking up trash on the other side of my fence, and I got to talking to him because I live in the valley and there's a lot of wind that comes through here. And there is literally trash that blows under my gate into my yard. Like, my husband is constantly annoyed by the amount of trash that
I would be too. I would be.
I mean, on the north side, that side of our fence is just caked with trash. And then somehow there's like this whirlwind that happens around the gate. So then trash is on the south side. But anyway, so this man was picking up trash, and I was so appreciative because like we have a problem. We have a trash problem. And I asked him, why are you doing this? And he said that he actually works at a local recovery center, and he was collecting trash to get, I guess, coins or tokens. I forget how he phrased it, but that was life-giving to me, and it was life-giving to him. And I don't know what other gifts he was receiving from that internally, but I think just observing him, being able to be in the present and to be giving back to society and our neighborhood and our community. Like, picking up trash seems so simple, but it really is a really big deal to us. And I saw another lady one time. She lives down the street. She doesn't even live right here, but she decided to pull her car in the lot and pick up trash. And I went over to her and I introduced myself and I said, thank you, And so, yeah, I feel like what some might think is this little act of, choice, it really does impact people around you in ways that you might not even know. So be the change that you want to see in the world. I really love that quote. I had that quote hanging up in my house for a while, and it's so it totally dissolves the I can't, because it magnifies the I can from the inside out. What is it that you want to see take place in this world?
That's a beautiful place to end, because you have to be able to see what you want before you can move in that direction. And so it really does start with your thoughts. It starts with the thoughts that you keep. And we can't survive without the ability to envision where we're going. And I mean that on a holistic level. With thrive, I should say. Thrive, a lot of people are just going along on the hamster wheel. They have no vision, and life becomes a hamster wheel. That's not thriving. That's not living an empowered life. So you have to be able to envision what an empowered life looks like. And so we've given you some tools on how you can possibly start that. And of course, we've offered our services. If you need help with that, you can get in touch with us. And we really would so appreciate if you would visit our YouTube channel. If you're not watching this from YouTube right now, if you would visit our YouTube channel, you simply type in @Meeting in the Sacred in the search bar, and it'll bring it up. We would love for you to check out our other content and to please subscribe. We are super honored for the subscriptions that we have at this time, and honored to be able to bring this Meeting in the Sacred to the world. And so every subscription helps us. The algorithms are kind of a thing, and so your little effort accumulates for us and empowers us to continue what we're doing as well. And so if you're watching this from Facebook, we ask that you would also please go ahead and show some love and just share and drop some comments and some ideas and thoughts and things in the comments. We would love to engage with you. We just want to thank you so much for your time. And I feel like there was something else that I wanted to mention on there. I guess not. Did I miss anything? Oh, I can't hear you.
Sorry, I muted myself.
Am I missing anything? I feel like I'm missing something.
Well, you normally tell people how they can reach us at the end of our sessions.
Yeah, and I said that a couple of times throughout.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess that's it. We're really building momentum. Our goal right now is to build momentum on our YouTube channel. We would really love your help reaching 50 subscribers. Seems like such a small number, but it's a meaningful number for us, and because it would signify our first milestone. And so as we're talking about the importance of accumulation, please just understand that it takes you 5 seconds to hit your YouTube tab and to find at Meeting in the Sacred and push the subscribe button. And I don't think you fully understand how valuable that is to us, that you would take the time to do that. If you've appreciated or enjoyed any of this content at all, it really would mean the world to us if you would take a few seconds to go ahead and do that, and also to share the video. All right. And we just speak a blessing over your life. And thank you again so much for participating and spending time with us today. Have an amazing day.